This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
All right, welcome in. It's time for Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo here on a Sunday night. The Masters is in the books, and it was one to remember. This one, certainly one for the history books, not just for Rory McIlroy and his accomplishments, but in terms of some of the best Masters that we've ever seen, right up there with 2019 in terms of the past decade, in my opinion. We're going to dive in shortly. We've got some great guests that our sensational producer, Adam Bernard, has put together for us here on the program. We're going to dive into the MLB slate with our buddy Clay Link from over at RotoWire, as well as Nick Whalen, another RotoWire champ, co-host of Prop Points here on the network. We're going to dive into the Masters with Nick, as well as the NBA playoffs. And later on during the program in hour 2, going to welcome in Rick Comla to talk NBA playoffs as well here on Cashing Out. We're going to dive into the Western Conference playoff picture now that it is official. We know exactly what we're looking at Western Conference standings-wise. It took 82 games to sort that out, but we've finally done it, and we've got some odds on the 3 versus 6. The Lakers, of course, who have solidified that 3 seed over the weekend. The Nuggets and Clippers in that 4-5 series to start. Then Oklahoma City awaiting the 8 seed, and the Rockets getting the winner of Memphis Golden State. You know, I've got that Houston ticket in pocket. We're going to see how the odds look for that Rockets ticket right now. But 27-1 in pocket on Houston, taking on the winner of Memphis Golden State. Going to look at the Eastern Conference here shortly. My Knicks locked up the 3 seed. Could be a nightmarish first-round matchup for the Knicks with the Detroit Pistons. Before we dive into the NBA, though, we've got to talk Masters. Rory McIlroy completing the Grand Slam. It was a Grand Slam 11 years in the making for the Irishman, and it almost slipped right through his fingertips. He looked great. Holes 2 through 10, and the back 9, really the back 8 to be specific, were just absolutely disastrous. Now, the result wasn't disastrous, but his final 8 holes certainly were. Started off with a double bogey, got into a great rhythm, a great groove. I mean, completely ran away from Bryson DeChambeau. But then how about Justin Rose? The guy who was the leader after the first round, who notoriously has led so many times after the first round in Augusta, only to not be able to finish throughout the weekend. Rose caught him, the playoff ensued, and it was as dramatic a finish to the Masters as you could have asked for. 11 years later, though, Rory gets it done, gets the green jacket, and I think it's impossible to be happier for Rory McIlroy than most of the country, most of the world watching the Masters was. The guy is so damn likable, and this would have been the most gut-wrenching. I mean, we've seen other collapses. We've seen Rory come close but no cigar, right? We've seen a top 5 finish, a 4th place finish, and a 2nd place finish for Rory in Augusta. This would have probably been the worst collapse of his career. This might have been the nail in the coffin that he was just not meant to get a green jacket. But he overcame it, was able to finish despite an up and down day. Let's hear from Rory on his up and down day down there in Augusta.
I've carried that burden since August 2014. It's been 11 years, it's nearly 11 years. I'm not just about winning my next major, but the career Grand Slam, you know, trying to join a group of 5 players to do it. You know, watching a lot of my peers get green jackets in the process. Yeah, it's been difficult, and I've tried to approach this tournament with the most positive attitude each and every time that I've shown up, and I think just the sort of cumulative experience that I've gained coming back here each and every year, I feel like I get a little more comfortable with the shots needed.
Man, he did not look comfortable at the end there. He looked relieved, to say the least. But that was a stressful day, a stressful finish for Rory. Phenomenal day in terms of viewing. I mean, the collapses that we saw, guys like DeChambeau and Corey Connors and even Ludwig there at the end, cost a lot of people some tickets, but Rory getting it together, fending off Justin Rose in the playoff, and it was as dramatic a Masters as we could have asked for. We're going to talk about it more with our buddy Nick Whalen, co-host of Prop Points. Catches terrific work also over at RotoWire a little later on. But let's shift gears here over to the NBA playoffs because we know the field. The Lakers hosting the T-Wolves in the 3-6. It's going to be Clippers, Nuggets, Denver locking up that 4 seed. And I'll tell you what, as we look at some series prices that are starting to come out, we've got game 1 odds, the Nuggets laying 3.5 against the Clippers. But on the series as a whole, Denver laying 65 cents. LA, the Clippers, plus $1.35. I think the Clippers have some serious value there as they get ready to take on the Nuggets. And I know, look, the Nuggets have home court advantage. You're dealing with altitude. You're dealing with Nikola Jokic, who just turned in a ridiculous season, averaging a triple-double. The guy's got 3 MVPs. This might have been his best season yet. How crazy is that? But the LA Clippers are playing their best basketball at the right time. And the Denver Nuggets have sort of backed into the playoffs. And, of course, it's the post-Malone era out there in Denver. Michael Malone canned, 3 games left in the regular season. And the Nuggets, albeit they're 3-0 without Michael Malone, they've won 3 straight to end the year to get 50 wins and get that 4 seed. This is not a team I can trust with an interim coach without Malone, without Calvin Booth, with all the drama, all the distractions. I cannot get behind the Denver Nuggets this postseason. Look at the way the Clippers ended the year. I mean, yes, Denver won 3 in a row. They finished 5-5 in their last 10. Clippers won 8 in a row. Won 9 out of 10 to end the year. This is a Clippers team that I think is built for the playoffs. They have a lot of load management in the regular season early on. No Kawhi, no Harden. When they're out there and they're healthy, and you've got Kawhi playing, playoff Kawhi defense, and you've got James Harden out there, and Powell and Zubats on both ends, another terrific two-way player. This is a Clippers team that I think, in spite of the altitude, in spite of the lack of home court advantage this series, is going to knock off the Nuggets. And at plus $1.35, I love the Clippers to advance from this series and take on Oklahoma City in the next round. The Thunder will await the, I can't even get into all the scenarios. The loser of Golden State Memphis will host the winner of Sacramento Dallas, and then the winner of that game will take on Oklahoma City. You know you're playing the Thunder. Round 2. If you survive the Denver Clippers series, you know you're on to OKC. The Rockets, on the other hand, probably praying that the Memphis Grizzlies go up to the Bay Area and upset Golden State. Although I'll tell you what, Houston just beat Golden State at its own game. And that's defense. 106-96, the last time that those teams squared off. And I really like this Rockets team. They're currently sitting there, 25-1 still. We got 27-1. How about the Grizzlies? Wow, they're down to 80-1. Same as Sacramento, same as, Sacramento and Dallas are 800-1. Memphis, 80-1. My goodness. You got the Thunder, minus 140. That's gotten even shorter than the minus 125 it was. Lakers, 6-1. Golden State, plus 750. That's the longest they've been in a while because they're in the play-in. Denver at plus 950, also the longest they've been in a while. LA Clippers have shortened up 15-1. Minnesota 20-1. Crazy to me that the 6th-seeded Timberwolves, who have to go to the Lakers in the first round, are shorter than the 2nd-seeded Rockets. But that's Vegas anticipating Houston will host Golden State and that the Warriors will advance. The way that the Rockets defend, I would put nothing past this team. And look, obviously, as someone holding a 27-1 ticket on the Rockets, do I want to see Golden State in the opening round? No, I would love to see Memphis. If somehow Memphis upsets Houston, upsets Golden State rather, I feel exponentially better about Houston making it to the second round and then being able to hedge a little bit with that Rockets presumably versus Lakers second round matchup. Obviously, I want the Grizzlies to upset Golden State here in the 7-8 play-in game. I was thinking it would be Memphis, Minnesota. I thought Golden State would work their way into the top 6, but they had that collapse in the loss against San Antonio, and that proved ultimately to be quite costly. But this Rockets ticket, still on principle. You're giving me the second seed as the seventh shot. I got to take it. Eastern Conference feels like it's going to be chalk. And chalk means the 2 seed in the East. Celtics, more of a favorite to emerge from the East, slightly. 5 cents we're talking. But they're minus 145 to emerge from the East. Oklahoma City, minus 140 to emerge from the West. And I'll tell you what, I love this Thunder team. They're sensational. I love Shai. He's an incredible player. He's going to be the MVP. He's a two-way stud. I love Lou Dort. He should be Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. There is a lot to be in love with this OKC team. But if you had to make me pick one favorite that's going to emerge from their respective conference, it's Boston. I think there's a better shot the Thunder get knocked off, maybe by the Lakers, than Boston getting knocked off by the Cavs or by my Knicks or by anyone else. I think Boston has the clear path to repeat as conference champs. Hey, VSiN fans, you're in luck. It's time to plan your Las Vegas getaway. Circa Las Vegas owner Derek Stevens is offering you 15% off at 3 incredible properties: Circa Las Vegas, the D Hotel, and the Golden Gate. Whether you're lounging by Stadium Swim, Circa's stunning rooftop pool taken in the games, or you're enjoying all the excitement Vegas has to offer, you'll save big with the promo code VSiN15. Book your stay now, CircaLasVegas.com. Use that code VSiN15. You'll get 15% off. Your Las Vegas adventure starts here. Coming up next, our buddy Nick Whalen, the co-host of Prop Points, right here on the network, weekdays 2 to 3 Eastern. Going to join the program. We'll talk Masters, NBA playoffs, and more. It's Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues here on VSiN with me, Joe Ceraulo, taking you through your late night, and now taking you over to the progressive guest line as we welcome in RotoWire senior analyst, also the terrific co-host of Prop Points right here on VSiN, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, Nick Whalen, joining us on the show. Nick, my man, Masters Sunday in the books. Rory finally gets it done via the playoff this time around against Justin Rose. Take us through the weekend, man. What were your thoughts? A lot of people thought Rory seemed dead after the first round, had an incredible Friday, incredible Saturday, and then avoids what would have been another epic collapse in Augusta. What does this mean for Rory and for the sport? He's been chasing this for over a decade.
Well, I'm scrambling a little bit here, Joe, because I thought for sure we'd be starting with Pat Connaughton putting up 43 and 11 today in a totally meaningless game for the Milwaukee Bucks. But I guess we'll set that aside for now. No, man. I mean, this is obviously the headliner, and I'm with you. I think it starts with how this week began for Rory McIlroy, right? Which is like this immaculate first 13 holes, 13 holes on Thursday, and then the collapse. And you're just wondering, okay, can he even get back to the point where you feel like he's truly contending for this tournament, let alone winning it, right? That almost felt like a side conversation for a little bit there on Thursday night. And, as we talked about last week, Joe, I am more of a golf player than I am somebody who's, totally locked in watching every single round, every single week. But I think I might be in on golf betting after this. I mean, this was such an incredible tournament. I'm not somebody who's, spending time, writing long tweets like I saw over and over this weekend about Rory's legacy or what this means for him. I was kind of indifferent as to whether or not he won, but it was almost impossible not to root for Rory McIlroy down the stretch. And I think, knowing what we know, having watched him as closely as we all have for so long, it feels kind of fitting that this is the way he finally got this done, right? It wasn't some runaway where you knew he had it clinched up by the 15th hole. It was kind of the perfect encapsulation of Rory's recent career, especially in majors, right? I mean, the first guy to win the Masters with 4 double bogeys throughout the week. I mean, multiple crushingly poor shots over these last couple of days. The double bogey on 13 was unbelievable. Almost went in the water. He was 4 inches away from going in the water on 11, a couple holes earlier. The missed putts on 15 and 18, but then mixed in with that, like some of the best golf shots that I've ever seen in my life, right? That shot on 7 over the trees, then the swooping 7-iron to 4 feet. I think he hit that thing like 205. That would be a good 45 yards further than I've ever hit a 7-iron in my life. And, of course, Rory then missing the eagle putt because, of course, that's how it's going to go for him. It was just, it was a perfect Rory weekend. I feel like he got the result you wanted if you're a Rory McIlroy fan. And I think it kind of came in a roundabout way in the perfect way.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And obviously, look, the story with Rory here, has taken so much of the spotlight, but there were a lot of other for better or worse, notable round 4 performances. I mean, how about the collapse by Ludwig at the end there on the 18th hole? And, you actually cashed a ticket on Ludwig because you went, and I'm going to say this to your credit because some people might take this as an insult. You went the more conservative route, but it actually worked to your credit and to your benefit with 2 guys, Ludwig and Corey Connors, who both were in position for top 5 finishes going into round 4, and both finished outside of the top 5, but inside the top 10. So take us through those 2 tickets that you had on Ludwig and Corey Connors' top 10.
Yeah, I did play it pretty conservatively. The one outright that I did have was John Rahm at 13-1, which he was fine. He was never really in the mix. I think he finished T14. But yeah, Connors, to me, I felt like he should have been more in the mix, honestly, today. Missed some putts he should have made. I thought he had a couple opportunities to kind of join that lead group on the back 9 and just, missed those. Oberg, ended up in solo 7th after playing the last 2 holes at 4 over. So yeah, in a roundabout way, I guess that worked out. Certainly felt like he was the guy for a while there who might swoop in and steal this from Rory, right? For so long, in the lead up to yesterday, all you're talking about is this Rory versus Bryson showdown. And you kind of forget that, Justin Reed could still storm back, or Justin Rose, could still storm back. And of course did that and made the playoff. Patrick Reed closed strong, never really had a chance to win that tournament. Scotty Scheffler was hanging around, but there was that, after the double from McIlroy, that's when it felt like, oh my goodness, Oberg is right there. And, at that time he was completely lighting it up. Obviously a really disappointing end of the tournament for him, but I have a feeling this will not be the last time we're talking about Oberg being in contention at a major.
No, I wouldn't think so either. And then, you kind of misspoke and had a little Freudian slip there when you said Justin Reed. Yeah. How about Patrick Reed? I mean, for your top 10 hits on Ludwig and Corey that were great, the top 10 hit on Reed, sensational. You hit that at 11-2. Why was he so undervalued in the market, do you think? Because you were all over him, and he's a guy who's had success on this course. He's a green jacket winner, but, he was such a ridiculous long shot. Why was that?
Yeah, I think he was 90-1, maybe even longer at some books to win the tournament. And, really, I think this is falling back on a strategy when it comes to betting the Masters that tends to work out, which is, bet on guys who have experience here, not guys who've just played the Masters, 5+ times, but guys who've actually had success at this course. And, Patrick Reed came into the 2025 Masters with 5 top 15s, 4 top 10s in his career, a couple of top 5s, and of course won it back in 2018. And, if you talk to Patrick Reed himself, I think he feels like he probably should have been more so in contention to actually win this thing. He was really disappointed in the putter earlier in the week, but he's somebody that I think obviously has success at Augusta, but also not somebody that I really worry about showing up to this tournament in peak form. And obviously it's very difficult to evaluate the live guys unless you're watching the CW network every weekend. But he's somebody that, regardless of what his public opinion is at that point, regardless of what the pricing is, always seems to show up at Augusta. I almost considered sprinkling on him at 90-1 to win the tournament. I guess I'm glad that we didn't end up doing that, but not surprised that he ended up hanging around. He always does. Yeah,
that was a hell of a call by you. Top 10 plus 550 on Reed there as he finishes 3rd. Folks, summer is right around the corner. So unlock your winning edge with an unbeatable offer. Get full VSiN Pro access to everything we do through August 1st for just $59. That's 50% off the regular monthly price. That'll include a daily email recapping all of the best bets from our hosts and guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, complete with trends and analysis to sharpen your game, 24/7 video on the VSiN Watch app, plus full VSiN.com access featuring advanced analytics and pro betting systems. Every sport, every edge, one incredible price. So don't wait. Get full access through August 1st, just $59. VSiN.com/subscribe. Nick Whalen with us on the Progressive Guest Line, co-host of Prop Points right here on VSiN, also senior analyst over at RotoWire. Nick, NBA playoffs, the field is finally set. Took 82 games to get our seeding, especially in the Western Conference, but we've got the matchups now. Obviously, we're awaiting the 1-8 and the 2-7s for the play-in. But as we look at these series prices, 3-6, 4-5, what are your thoughts on Nuggets Clippers? I think LA at plus $1.35 is really enticing.
There were 2 series prices that jumped out to me right away, Joe, and that was one of them. I think this is going to be the most compelling, probably the best to watch of all the first round series. Even if we do end up getting OKC Golden State in round 1, that'll be fantastic. But I think this will be the most competitive, maybe that's the right word, of all the first round series. I think there is value on the Clippers. I really do. I don't know that we can just look at, this last week essentially for the Denver Nuggets and say, all right, they've moved past, firing their head coach at the 79 game mark. Yeah, they're 3-0 since then, but they haven't really played an elite opponent. The Clippers are 18-7 since Kawhi Leonard was cleared to play more than 30 minutes. They've lost one game straight up with Kawhi Leonard on the court in the last month, 13-1 in their last 14 games with Kawhi. And again, the Nuggets, feel like they've kind of smoothed things over. They beat the Kings, the Grizzlies, and, whatever version of the Rockets that we saw today to finish out the year. But I would look long and hard at the Clippers plus 135 to win this series. They split the season series 2-2. Kawhi did not play in any of those games. Like, the Nuggets have not even had a look at the current version of Kawhi Leonard. And I think Kawhi is playing at the highest and most consistent level that we have seen from him in a long time. Now, the one thing that does worry me, Joe, is this requires you to have faith in James Harden, who has maybe the worst playoff track record of any lock future Hall of Famer in recent memory. So it's not just about Kawhi. Obviously, the Nuggets have the best player in this series, but I think the Nuggets over the last week and a half or so kind of became one of those teams that you maybe didn't want to play a month ago, and now they feel a lot more vulnerable. And the Clippers, to me, feel like a team that can exploit that.
Yeah, the Nuggets have gone from 8-1 to win the West to plus 950. The Clippers have shortened up from 18-1 to 15-1. I think the Clippers are a matchup nightmare for Denver. Nick, a little over a minute to go here. Let's take it over to the 4-5 matchup in the East. Milwaukee, Indiana, the Pacers laying almost $2. I know, obviously, if Dame Lillard's not out there, that it's going to be an uphill battle for the Bucks. But is that too high of a price, too long of a price for the Pacers?
I think it is. And yes, I am here in the city of Milwaukee saying this. I promise this is not homerism. If anything, I tend to go against my teams more than anything. But I think this is crazy. I even sent this around to some of my guys, and I'm like, this feels wrong, right? Minus 190 for Indy to win this series. I don't think Milwaukee fears this matchup. I think they wanted to dodge the New York Knicks in round one. I think this was the goal, to set up that rematch with the Indiana Pacers. We have to keep in mind that Giannis has basically played 2.5 playoff games over the last 2 seasons. I mean, they took the Pacers to 6 last year with Giannis playing 0 minutes in that series. Damian Lillard also missed 2 games in that series. He was hampered throughout, even when he was out there. Bucks, by the way, have quietly won 8 games in a row heading into the playoffs. So I would look at Milwaukee to win that series. I would look at the over 5.5 games. I don't think they breeze through necessarily, especially with the unknown that we have right now with Damian Lillard. We should find out more about that tomorrow, according to Shams Charania. But even if Dame comes back mid-series, like just having Giannis out there, I think is such an advantage for Milwaukee. So I think that one is a little bit mispriced.
Yeah, that over 5.5 seems low, although, hey, it is heavily juiced. You'd have to lay 80 cents for the over. More picks, more winners up next. More cashing out with Joe Ceraulo here on VSiN.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues here on VSiN with me, Joe Ceraulo. We've got Nick Whalen joining us on the Progressive Guest Line right now. You catch him on Prop Points weekdays, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, senior analyst over at RotoWire. And Nick, continuing our conversation on some of these series prices in the NBA. Look, I don't think that my Knicks are going to lose to Detroit in the first round, but I think the price is a bit enticing on the Pistons. Plus 330 we're looking at for Detroit. I got to be honest, I think the Knicks win, but this is a matchup that I'm feeling a little bit uneasy about. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I could see it. The Pistons have actually played the Knicks reasonably well this season. And I think as the year went on, it became clearer and clearer that the Knicks are maybe closer to that Pacers, Bucks, and even, I guess, Pistons tier than they are the Cavaliers and the Celtics. I thought they would be pushing for that 2 seed early in the season. But I also think this Knicks team is perfectly constructed for the playoffs. They basically play every game like it's the playoffs anyway, right? Like, I think some of these other teams that can rely on their depth throughout the regular season, Cleveland, for instance, Boston, both those teams go 9-10 deep. You're not going to be playing those guys, more than a few minutes here and there when you got foul trouble in the postseason. So I think the Knicks are maybe more prepared to enter the playoffs than some of these other teams are. Not a whole lot is going to change with that rotation. I thought it was important to get just enough time for Jalen Brunson, not only to come back, but to actually work his way back into form. It's like, yeah, he's going to be back for the playoffs, but you want that guy to play 3, 4, 5 games to kind of get his win back and everything before the postseason starts. So I'm with you, where I wouldn't put this one on upset watch necessarily. Wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons could steal a game at home. Maybe they steal 2 games. I would be shocked if the Knicks end up losing this series. I don't know that the Knicks, have a ton of a chance against the Celtics or the Cavaliers as we get deeper into the postseason. I am starting to lose a little bit of faith there, but even though the standings would say that these teams were only separated by 3 games at the end, I still think you look at that starting 5 specifically for the New York Knicks, and it is significantly better than what the Detroit Pistons are throwing out there. And the Knicks have defenders to throw at Cade Cunningham. That's the other thing, right? OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. I mean, these are the perfect type of guys, physicality-wise, length-wise, to throw at Cade Cunningham. So I don't know if I would bet Detroit to win this series, but this is one where we actually have a reasonable price on the over 5.5 games. So if you think it's competitive, if you are worried a little bit about the New York Knicks, -115 for the series to go more than 5 games.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to follow up with, was that over-under on 5.5, because I think Detroit will certainly steal one at home, if not a second. I mean, I hope not, but we'll see how the Knicks respond here, because this is a team that, I don't know, Nick. 5-6 years ago, I'd have killed for the Knicks to be a second-round playoff team. Now it's like, here we go again, And I feel like they have to take that next step and get to the conference championship. Last series price we've got Lakers-Wolves. Same price as the Pacers-Bucks, -190 to the Lakers, plus $1.55 to Minnesota. Lakers have been amazing. What were they, 30-11 straight up at home this year? They've got the home court here. Any shot the Wolves knock them off?
I think there's a shot. I think there's certainly more of a chance that the Lakers lose this series than the Knicks do to the Detroit Pistons. I think the Wolves have size, right? That's the first thing. That's the number one thing you have to worry about right now if you're the Lakers. I think the Wolves could cause some problems on the offensive glass, just on rebounding overall. I mean, you look at the season-long numbers for the Timberwolves, and they would tell you that they're basically a league average rebounding team. They've been significantly better in that area over the last month plus. Number 3 in the NBA in total rebound percentage over the last month. They're number 1 if you just isolate the last 10 games. Rudy Gobert has been really, really good. He's playing some of the best ball of his season since coming back from injury. So this is that series, and really any series in the West is going to test the Lakers' lack of size. But, how much can you really get away with Jackson Hayes? Can you go small on Gobert and go small on Julius Randle? We're going to find out. Now, I do think from a strategic perspective, the Lakers may have an advantage here. JJ Redick already said, I've scheduled a meeting with Luka Doncic. We are going to talk about how to attack this team. Luka obviously faced Minnesota in the playoffs last year, played great in that series. And I think that was a better version of this Timberwolves team compared to what we have now with no Karl Anthony Towns. Yeah. There are still a lot of nights where you watch the Wolves and they feel a little Edwards dependent, right? And because he's the player that he is, maybe that's not a bad thing, but they're going to need Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, at least 2 of those 3. You could probably throw DiVincenzo in that mix as well. Those guys are going to have to play at an extremely high level throughout the series. You can't just sprinkle in a game here or there. Jaden McDaniels is one of those guys that he'll give you 23 and 4 3-pointers one night, and then he goes, 1 for 7 for the field the next. That's not going to fly against the Lakers. And I will say, in theory, much like we talked about with Cade Cunningham going up against the Knicks, the Lakers have the bodies to throw at Anthony Edwards. You got Rui Hachimura, you got Dorian Finney-Smith, guys with length who can bother him. I think the big key to this series, it's not necessarily Luka, it's not LeBron. You know what you're getting from those guys at this point. It's, can Austin Reeves continue to be a 20 to 25 point per game guy in the postseason? Because I think LeBron is finally at that point in his career. He's going to make an all-NBA team. He's still fantastic. He's still probably a top 10 guy. He's not necessarily 37-7 every single night in the playoffs like he was 5 or 6 years ago. So if Austin Reeves could continue to be the best third option in the Western Conference, then the Lakers probably win this series in 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the Lakers can do moving forward, man. I think that they are the most poised team in the conference to knock off Oklahoma City. I'm not saying that they're going to, but I think they certainly have the best shot. I think that a Celtics to win it all, and I hate taking teams to repeat, but a Celtics championship ticket plus 190 might be worth the value, because that Western Conference is going to be such a dogfight. I mean, from the first round on, there is no break. Maybe Oklahoma City against a Memphis or a Sacramento gets somewhat of a break in the first round, but I don't think anyone else gets a break even in round 1. Hey, let's talk about, speaking of Memphis, speaking of Sacramento, let's talk some play-in games here. Grizzlies, Warriors, Golden State laying 7. Is that too many? Would you lay that with the Warriors on Tuesday night?
I'm going back and forth on this. That number does feel a little bit high, considering the stakes here. I think everybody's down on Memphis, really since the Taylor Jenkins firing, but this is still a 48-win team. I mean, this is still a really, really talented team. I think if they were in the Eastern Conference, we'd be talking about them in the same breath that we are a team like the Knicks. Now, Golden State is 3-1 straight up against Memphis this season. They have only played them once, however, with Jimmy Butler. I mean, Warriors finished 7-3 straight up in their last 10. They're 23-8 since the Jimmy Butler trade, and that still lands you in the play-in in the Western Conference. I think if I had to bet it right now, I would lean Golden State playing at home. To me, this is maybe more of an under spot. I think this is going to be certainly that playoff type of atmosphere. Golden State has been so good defensively. They're going to try to slow the game down. I think they will have success doing that. And, I think my big concern with Golden State, not necessarily in this game, but going forward, whether they're facing Houston, whether they're facing OKC, whoever it might be in round one, is this team does not have anything offensively outside of Jimmy Butler and Stephen Curry. 66 combined points today in that overtime loss to the Clippers. Still couldn't win that game. The other night against the Spurs, which ended up being huge for them. That's the game that ended up landing them in the play-in. You get 58 combined points out of Curry and Butler. There's just no one else on this Warriors roster that you could consistently trust. So I think if Memphis can just slow down one of those two guys, we'll see. Easier said than done. I think this leads me toward more of an under spot when I'm looking at betting that play-in game.
Yeah, that total's sitting there pretty high at 230. Speaking of totals, two teams that could not be any different. The Hawks, a big over team. The Magic, a big under team. Total ends at 217, 218, depending on the shop. Magic laying 5. Yeah. What are your thoughts there? Can Atlanta pull off the upset?
Well, first of all, that total is already down a full point just in the last 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
When I was prepping for this, it was at 218, then it was 217.5, now all the way down to 217. So again, playoff atmosphere, these games do tend to grind down, a little bit more than you might think. This kind of one game win and in setting, teams tend to tighten up. And you think about how much Orlando specifically struggled to begin that playoff series against Cleveland last year. I mean, they were in the 80s in the first two games of that series. Now, Cleveland's a little bit of a different animal compared to what we're facing with the Atlanta Hawks, but I think Atlanta's live here. I really think they are. I mean, this is an Orlando team that struggles to shoot the three. That's kind of become the great equalizer, of course, in the NBA. The Jalen Suggs injury has really hurt them. They've not found a solution whatsoever at point guard. They tried Cole Anthony, that didn't work. They're moving on to a combination of Anthony Black and Corey Joseph. That's pretty uninspiring. So I see this as a closer to a toss-up game for me, to be honest. Like, all four of these teams at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, not a whole lot really separates them. And if you want to look at something a little larger here, Orlando 5-1 or Atlanta plus 255, especially if you feel like you have a good read on this play-in game. 5-1 to miss the playoffs for Atlanta, 255 for Orlando, 255 for Atlanta. One of those teams is playing Chicago or Miami later this week. That's even more of a toss-up game. So I think there is actually some value there in kind of fading these teams in the long term when you're looking at the play-in.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting take. I was going to ask, who do you think comes out of that Miami-Chicago game? The Bulls obviously have finished pretty hot to end the regular season. Miami, different style of basketball, more defensive, grinded-out team. Final 45 seconds here. Which of those teams would be more likely to win that game and potentially beat the winner, or the loser, rather, of the Magic and the Hawks?
I have written in my notes right here, full disclosure. This is the toss-up game of all toss-up games. To answer your question, though, I still have more faith in Miami. I know this entire season has just told us that this is just an average basketball team. Maybe I'm just still thinking of the goodwill that the Heat culture has built up over the years. But you'd like to think this would be a spot where Miami could avenge that loss last week to Chicago. That's a game that essentially decided that this game would take place at the United Center. I think you have a coaching advantage with Miami. You have a really good defensive team. The Bulls have quietly been decent defensively. Do you really trust that in this setting? I'm not sure I do. I think Miami comes up with a better defensive game plan against Josh Giddey. And if you're basically telling me it's a pick 'em, I'm going to lead toward Eric Spoelstra.
I'm with you. Even though they're on the road, I'm on Spoelstra in the Heat in this one. Nick, as always, great stuff, man. Thanks so much for the time.
Anytime, man. Have a good show.
Make sure you catch him on Prop Points, weekdays, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. Our buddy Nick Whalen, senior analyst over at RotoWire. More cashing out up next.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues with me, Joe Ceraulo, taking you through your Sunday night here on the show. How about the day we had in Major League Baseball? Kind of got overshadowed by the final day of the NBA season and, of course, more than anything, the Masters. But it was a pretty good day on the diamond, too. And, look, it's early in the season. Not going to overreact to anything here. Like I said last week, and I'm going to keep saying this probably until June 1st. If you're looking at the standings right now in Major League Baseball, get a hobby, get a pet, get something. because no one should be looking at the standings until June. How many times have we seen great teams stink in the middle of May, right? Nationals 2019 won the World Series, stunk in the middle of May. Mets last year, NLCS, pushed the Dodgers 6 games, stunk in the middle of May. So if you're looking at the standings right now, get a hobby, take up knitting, do something better with your time. That said, I was looking at the standings, and there's some interesting conversations that could be had about a few divisions. First off, NL West, outstanding, incredible. The Dodgers, 4-6 in their last 10. What the hell's going on there? I mean, we hit them. Last episode of Cashing Out that I did Thursday night, Friday morning, gave out Dodgers to not bat bottom 9. They beat the Cubs 3-0. What'd they get outscored the rest of the series? 20-2 between Saturday and Sunday. I mean, my goodness, 16-0 on Saturday at home. They lose to the Cubs. Sasaki on the bump. Pitched a fine game. I mean, wasn't superb, wasn't stellar. Pitched a fine game. But the Dodgers, look, I don't want to sound the alarm this early, and third place, first place doesn't matter at this point. But the fact that they've lost 6 out of their last 10, I think the Dodgers are slightly concerning. I think the AL East as a division is slightly concerning. I mean, you got the Boston Red Sox, who opened the year losing 3 out of 4 against the Rangers. My pick, plus 425 in pocket to win the AL East. 9-1 to win to get the 1 seed in the American League, which, by the way, I mean, not a single American League team has 10 wins yet. That American League, I think, is shaping out to be just as mediocre as we thought it would be. You look at the National League, Mets 10-5, Phillies 9-6, Cubs 11-7, Padres 13-3, best team in baseball, Giants 11-4, Dodgers 11-6. So I know I threw the Phillies in there at 9-6, but they don't count for this. 5 teams have double-digit wins in the National League. 0 in the American League have double-digit wins. How about the Blue Jays? 9-7. How about the Tigers and the Angels have the best records at 9-6? But the American League East, you got Toronto 9-7, Yankees 8-7, Red Sox 8-9, Orioles, who started the year well, now 6-9, last place in that division. Again, the standings don't matter. I'm not reciting these records or talking about the standings to try to make a point that the standings matter. They don't. But that American League East might be way more mediocre than a lot of people thought. And a lot of people had the Yankees as this 95-win team, right? And their over-under was, 91.5, 92.5. Cole gets hurt. It's still 89.5. And I don't know. I mean, this Yankees team, people were saying, oh, well, they still have Fried. They still have Carlos Rodon. To me, Carlos Rodon is not consistent. You know? And yes, Max Fried, he is an ace. And he is an ace on about half of the teams in the league. And on this team, if Cole was healthy, Fried was expected to be the number 2. I'll say if Cole was healthy anyway, Fried still might have had the better year. Garrett Cole was not phenomenal last season when he came back. I love Max Fried. He's sensational. That rotation after him, mighty thin. They've been without Schmidt. They've been without the Rookie of the Year, Luis Heel. And even before Heel's injury, I was wondering what he'd be able to replicate in year 2. Stroman, Mr. I'm a starter with his 7 ERA to the IL. I don't know. To me, that's a case of, we've seen Stroman before. I've seen it when he was with the Mets. Have a crap start, and then boom, he's on the IL. I mean, you know, I don't know how much of that had to do with the injury, how much of that had to do with Stroman. Just, he's not the guy. He's not the dude. Devin Williams, shaky in the bullpen. The Yankees are concerning, but so are the Red Sox. I expected way more out of the Red Sox. After they countered that 1-3 start by going on a stretch where they won 5 out of 6, I thought the Red Sox, all right, slow start. They figured it out. They went from 1-3 to 6-4 was it? And they have just totally stunk it up since. They've only won 2 out of their last 7. The Chicago White Sox just took 2 out of 3 from them. Thank goodness Garrett Crochet in a little bit of a, I don't necessarily want to call it a revenge spot. He was traded into a better situation. He got what he wanted ultimately. Got traded to a better team and got a payday. But Garrett Crochet in a bit of a revenge spot, come back to his old team, you know, you certainly want to, you know, your juices get flowing a little more. When you're playing your old team, you want to show up and show out a little more. And Crochet did just that. Second most Ks of his career, 11 strikeouts, 7 1/3, 1 hit, 1 earned. I mean, Garrett Crochet was sensational. He's been worth every penny thus far. I know it's a brand new contract extension that netted him, $170 million, but Garrett Crochet has been absolutely stunning for the Red Sox out there. It's these bats that just can't seem to get it going. Devers has bounced back, but Bregman coming back down to earth a little bit. Duran, inconsistent to start. Obviously, Abreu wasn't going to hit 571 all season long, right? But the Red Sox struggling to piece it together. And that pitching, a little thin, after the top of the rotation. Buehler obviously has not, in his first few starts, looked great. Tanner Houck has not looked great in his first few starts, and I believe he'll get the ball Monday for Boston against Tampa Bay. It'll be Houck versus Shane Baz. But the Red Sox just can't seem to put it together. Pitching looked great early. They weren't hitting. Then the bats liven up, and then the pitching kind of falls off a cliff a little bit. This American League, I know it's early, but I think we're going to get what we thought, and that is a really darn mediocre American League. The National League, to me, you put the Mets in the American League, they're winning the pennant. You put the Padres in the American League, they might be winning the pennant. To me, it's the National League has, and I know that the Braves have been an absolute joke and that the Braves have been an absolute abomination to start at 4-11. But you got right now the Mets, Cubs, Giants, Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks even at 9-7, Phillies even at 9-6. The National League is so far superior to the American League in the early goings of the season. And just to zoom in on, narrow in on some results from Sunday, I was shocked. First off, we talk about the Phillies coming back down to earth a bit after they had the great start and then took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers last weekend at Citizens Bank, losing 2 out of 3 to St. Louis. Now, Friday was predictable, and we talked about the Friday game on Cashing Out Thursday night, bleeding into Friday morning, because the Phillies and Braves had a game Thursday that started at 7 p.m. Eastern, and with about a 2.5-hour rain delay, ended at nearly 1 a.m. Eastern time. So I knew that Friday game was going to be a struggle bus situation for Philadelphia. Flying to St. Louis after the game in Atlanta, probably got to the hotel, give or take an hour, around 6 a.m. local time in St. Louis. And they did exactly what you'd expect. They lost 2-0 Friday night. Pitched well, but, they got no offense going. Then Saturday, they bounced back behind Christopher Sanchez. Miles Michaelis is throwing batting practice for the Cardinals. They win it 4-1. And I'm thinking, all right, bats woke up a bit Saturday. Sunday, you got Wheeler on the bump. Phillies run line is the move. They're going to hit. Matt Libator's going, and he's got an ERA north of 5. And the Phillies get blanked, and Wheeler gets hit around. 7-0 Cardinals. Could not believe it. Wheeler, 6 innings, 4 earned, only 3 strikeouts. Libator, 6 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. Could not believe the way that the Phillies bats no-showed. They got 3 hits the entire game in St. Louis. Speaking of teams who got blanked, how about the Mets score 8 runs and you get an under in Sacramento? Could you believe that? Total going off 9.5. Mets put up an 8 spot and it stays under. Kodai Senga, 7 scoreless innings. Strikeouts were a little low. The A's have been one of the better teams in the league in terms of not striking out. Only 4 strikeouts in the 7 innings, 79 pitches. Senga's a guy who's had some pitch count troubles throughout his, the early going of his career. He's had some command issues, walked some guys here and there. 7 shutty on 79 pitches. For the Athletics, Severino, against his team of last season, looked really good. 5 2/3, just 1 earned, 6 strikeouts, but the bullpen for the A's couldn't do it. Mets, this game was, if you had a first 5 ticket, it was a push. It was nothing after 5. Mets go 1 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th, and then a 4 spot in the 9th to pull off the 8-0 win in Sacramento. By the way, one of the best performances I saw from a pitcher on Sunday. How about Cole Reagans? Second pitcher in Kansas City Royals history. 10 or more strikeouts. 3 straight games. You might have a couple of young lefties contending for the Cy Young at the end of things in the American League, and it might not be Tarek Skubal. It could be Garrett Crochet and Cole Reagans at the end of this. This is not a Cole Reagans overreaction. This kid, just like he was last year, is the real deal. Folks, whether you're at home, on the road, or on the go, there are more ways than ever to tune into VSiN. Stream us live on VSiN.com, the VSiN Watch app, YouTube TV, iHeartRadio, Fire TV, Roku, or, of course, SiriusXM Channel 158, the newest home of VSiN. Up next, a new hour of Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo, all over Rory McIlroy's historic Masters win and more. You don't want to miss it. You're locked into VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.